I'm back, bitches, and welcome to my review of Atari 50. When I say games preservation, if you're part of the gaming scene, there's probably a lot of things you think of. A lot of controversy with bigger known companies taking down storefronts, a lot of controversy with games not being properly preserved. A lot of controversy with lazy game collections coming out nowadays. This is something that has been a hot topic lately. Games preservation. What does it mean? What is it? I think Atari 50 is a genuine answer to what games preservation is and can be moving forward. Atari 50 is a celebration of 50 years of Atari. I just want to make it clear that I am reviewing or showing the footage of this game from the PlayStation 4. This actually is not my copy, though. I only borrowed this PS4 copy from somebody to get the footage. The actual version of this game that I play is the version on my Atari VCS console. So, I may talk about some differences in that respect, but just so you know, this is like a clean, fresh file going into the PS4 version. Atari 50 is a celebration of Atari. And we've had Atari collections before. Even on the PS4, I have the Atari Flashback Volumes 1, 2, and 3 by Code Mystics. And those collections get the job done if you're just looking to play some 2600 games, sure. But Atari 50 goes above and beyond being that. First, we'll talk about the game side of things. You get a ton of games with this collection. You get 103 games, to be clear. And those games span across arcade games, Atari 2600 games, Atari 5200 games, Atari 7800 games, Atari computer games like the Atari 800, the Atari Lynx, the Atari Jaguar, and you also get 7 brand new games exclusive to this collection, made for this collection. So that's already a deal and a half. 103 games, with 7 of them being brand new games brought over to this collection. Already a bang for your buck. Plus, a lot of these games, the 2600 games you see re-released a lot, even some of the arcade games. But a lot of the games for like the Atari Jaguar, the Atari Lynx, the 5200, 7800, and Atari home computers, a lot of those games you don't really see re-released that often. So that in itself is a pretty nice rarity. And as many games as there are to play, there's an equal amount of stuff to enjoy within the game's museum. So when you first start up the game, it actually doesn't go to the game menu. That might sound strange at first, but I think it's intentional to show what this really is. This is a history lesson. It goes straight to the museum. And the museum starts from the start of Atari, the very beginning of gaming, basically, all the way to now. They talk about everything. They show everything. They have interviews with leading members of Atari, games they developed, even people outside of Atari from other gaming studios that were influenced by Atari. They have commercials they show design documents, behind the scenes stuff, failed projects. It's so cool how much they were willing to include in this collection.
Solid blue, metal flake blue, and metal flake red. And he goes a whole bunch of other games too. Okay, great. Want to come up and see them. These were in a Quonset hut on a sunflower seed farm off of Highway 80 in Dixon, California, halfway between, the Bay Area and Sacramento. And these things hadn't been moved in, probably since 1975. And so I got in touch with Nolan and showed him the pictures and scratched his head, and then like a light bulb went off in his head. He goes, these were Ted Dabney's. These were Ted Dabney's units. This was his route. When he left, he took a route that we had, and he goes, this yellow one's the first one. He goes, I know it. That yellow one is the very first one. I kept the first one, which is a beautiful yellow computer space, and I kept Pong number 46. And we got the rest of them running and working as good as we could. We got it all for $5,000. I don't regret the purchase one bit. Not for a minute.
The only stuff they can't really show, and just to be clear, the Atari of today isn't really the Atari of the 70s, which you should probably know that by now, but that Atari is dead and gone. But it's clear that this new team has a love and respect for, what they've adopted. And part of what happened there was that Atari was sold through some different companies. The name was sold around. I think Hasbro had it at one point. Infogrames had it. Now it's back to being its own thing. But they can't really show much from, that period for legal reasons, I guess. But they're not afraid of showing shit from the start of Atari up through the Jaguar, up through the Game Crash, up through what's going on now with the VCS, the homebrew scene. They're not afraid to talk about that stuff. And I found it to be really, really refreshing, because I couldn't imagine Nintendo or Capcom or even my beloved Sega highlighting some of their company's biggest mistakes. They would have too much pride. And again, part of this is probably because the Atari of today isn't the same Atari as old, but it's still refreshing to be able to look at what happened to the company, them talk about the struggles behind the scene, to really go in depth with all of this stuff is super cool.
Beautiful. Watch it disintegrate. Now let's go into deeper space. Galactic map. Sector 11. Hyperspace. Sights in. Cylon warships. Attack. Steady. Stand by. Photons. Star Raiders. That's it. Star Raiders. That'll keep them on their toes. Let's see what we can come up with next.
We're Atari. We have the vision, and we invented the technology to bring the excitement home to you.
The games on offer here are awesome. I just want to say that if you're thinking about picking this up for the games, there's a handful that are worth it alone. One of those being Tempest 2000 for the Atari Jaguar. Jeff Minter, love him, makes some great games. I've actually been playing the new version of Aka R that also came out on the VCS, and it's on other consoles as well. Also by Jeff Minter. Love the dude, love Tempest, love his style of games. And Tempest 2000 is it's fantastic. Eventually, I do want to actually go in and review some of these games separately. I'm not going through all the games in this video, so be on the lookout for that. Maybe I'll do a whole a whole series of reviews. Some of them I've covered. Some of the like 2600 games and stuff I've covered before. But maybe I'll do like a whole series of reviews to cover everything that's in Atari 50 over time. So that's something to think about. But I'm just gonna kind of like show you some of the different games playing on the collection throughout this review. Something weird I noticed, and it's my fault, was that to get the footage, I simply opened the case, popped it into my PS4, and started playing for the first time. I didn't download the like day one patch or like any other updates that they've done since, and I noticed a few of the games emulation having some sound issues. And I haven't heard anybody else talk about that, so I take it that's just because I didn't update or patch the game at all. Again, I played this on the VCS. I've never noticed any sound emulation issues, any sound quality issues with the games. So that's probably just my fault. So don't let that hold you back. Don't strike that against the game. That's my fault for just not wanting to wait. For the patch to get some footage for this review. So the sound works fine. Just make sure you update your game, kids. The new games on offer are fucking fantastic, and I'm not going to show them all right now, but I do want to highlight Vector Sector. It's probably my favorite one. It is an homage to vector-style games of the of the arcade of the era. Games like Asteroids, Tempest, Lunar Lander. They kind of took these games and mashed them all up into one game. And it's super addictive. I've played this one a ton on my VCS, and it's also one that I would say is worth it for this collection. There's some other cool ones like Ninja Golf that I think are worth noting. That's kind of one that's been memed to death now. Is like Ninja Golf. Even like Aqua Teen Hunger Force, their PS2 game, which I do have that one. Ninja Zombie Pro-Am is like directly inspired from Ninja Golf because it's such a stupid premise. But it's just fun to go in and check out some of these games that you haven't seen before. You probably haven't played before. Or if you're just wanting to go back and play something like Asteroids, something like Missile Command, something like Yar's Revenge or something, it's definitely there. Neo Breakout is one that I really enjoy, and it's one that I actually do want to highlight for this video because I think that this game alone almost makes the VCS version worth it for me. So on the Atari VCS, for those of you who don't know, which is probably a lot of you, the Atari VCS, Atari's newer home console hybrid mini PC thing that I have, that I'll probably do a video at some point talking about this thing. The new joystick controllers that they created for it actually have paddles built in. You like turn the joystick as a paddle. And for something like Breakout, that's necessary. Well, of course, the VCS version of Neo Breakout has paddle support. So playing it here on the PS4 is very hard for me. I don't like playing Breakout on a normal controller anyway. So this one definitely benefits from being on the VCS and having that paddle support. And I'm sure there's a few other paddle games like Circus Atari and stuff that also benefit, but this is the one that I definitely noticed. Atari 50. There's a lot to learn from this collection. I want other companies to really look at what Atari did here, what Digital Eclipse did here, and I want them to take note that this isn't just some lazy cash grab where they threw some ROMs onto a collection. This is really a deep dive into Atari and into the company, the games, everything. I would recommend this for anybody that has any interest in Atari, which if you watch my channel, you know, obviously I do a lot of Atari reviews. So if you enjoy that kind of stuff, I think you should give Atari 50 a try. I can't imagine, I think this came out like last November. I can't imagine this collection will be like holding its value for very long. Just because that's just the nature of games nowadays. So you could probably get this pretty cheap coming up, you know. I would say sometime this year you could probably get it for $20-30, and that's totally worth it. It's a great celebration of this company, and I think it does games preservation right. Games preservation isn't, to me at least, isn't just having a ROM that you can play. Any company can do that shit. I think games preservation is really preserving the game and its history as a whole. Playing a ROM doesn't really get it across, you know, what the game was at the time, what the game means, what the game is. But really having something like this where you can play a game like Yar's Revenge and then go into its segment on the museum and really dig into what the game was at the time, how important it was, that's cool. That's games preservation to me. And I hope other companies take note. To end off here, I just wanted to show what I thought was one of the coolest interviews, and they're talking about the video game crash that happened, and they have the two of the guys that people point fingers at for years now, and blame, and they don't deny this, and it's the guy that, I forget the names, but the guy that designed E.T., he also did Yar, and the guy that designed Pac-Man on the Atari, and some of their guests pop in too, and they really talk about just what happened during that time. I want to leave off on that, because I think it really gets across what this collection is. Thanks for watching. I will return with more reviews. I'm ready to get going again. And Atari. I had like no sleep last night, so I just had like a stroke. Atari, there we go. Atari reviews are definitely on the table. It's something I want to return to. I love doing reviews on Atari games. Thanks for watching, guys. Enjoy this little interview. Fuck yeah.
When you have a tragedy, and I do believe that the fall of the video game industry in the early 80s was a tragedy. It was a tragedy to many, many people. It changed a lot of lives.
I think it's pretty obvious when it comes to the video game crash that Atari didn't have control over the quality.
I mean, it needed some sort of way to keep just anybody from writing cartridges for it.
And so many people saw this video game gold rush, and they just, started dumping crap. I remember going into KB toy stores and just seeing, really bad box art and just really just terrible looking games. And that's when I started losing interest, and the market became flooded just with garbage. And it ultimately led to, of course, things like E.T. being, actually buried in the desert like garbage.
And what happened was that E.T. became the face of the crash of the video game industry. And I, of course, was the butt behind the face. That's kind of the way it went.
Greed and hubris, that's what undid Atari. If they just had worked more from a place of focusing on making great games and delivering great games to the customer instead of how can we maximize revenue, I feel like they'd still be a huge powerhouse today.
Frankly, Warner did not understand technology. They didn't understand the consumer marketplace, the video game, and Ray Kassar, I think was afraid of releasing new product because it might not be as successful as VCS. So that's a sure way to fail. And
I regret that we didn't have a new console by '84 that would have made it so that Atari continued to be a really viable business.
We never, ever got down to ever having any process by which we could come up with a better system.
Even today, I think people do believe that if they had just released the 5200 earlier, or if they released the 7800, or they had done different things, they would could never have they would have survived the crash a lot better, and they would be a powerhouse today. As a kid, I didn't know much about business, but I just felt like something was wrong.
No one knew anything. Certainly no one knew how to replace an existing console with a new one.
The real one-liner about why the game industry crashed and went away is that it was a first product life cycle and nobody knew what to do.
Take me back to the good old days. I was still stuck in my ways. Maybe that was just a phase.
Take me back, take me back, take me. But we here right now. Take me. So let's do it for the now. Take me back, take me back, take me back now. Take me back, take me back, take me back now. Take me back, take me back, take me back now. Take me back, take me back. I used to say I wanna jump in the back, sunroof top, and I be in the scene with a gangster lean. Ooh.